Okay, this is my son's one-up arcade cabinet wiring diagram with a Raspberry Pi 4. Okay, now I'm gonna go over some of the parts. This is the monitor, controller board, an amp, speaker. This is the control panel with the joysticks and the buttons. This is the Raspberry Pi 4, two USB ports, power switch, electrical box with a receptacle, and a surge protector. Okay, now I'm gonna start with the monitor. This is the monitor that comes with the one-up arcade cabinet. It has 3 wires hooked up to it. These ones for the image, the ground, and the power. All that gets hooked on to this controller board. Now this controller board costs about $40 on eBay, and what this does, it lets image gets converted so you can watch it on the monitor. It has a HDMI port here, so you can hook up anything that has HDMI and you can watch it on here. But this has different kinds of pins, so these pins gets hooked onto this, and this lets the image gets converted so this can understand it and view it. Now this board here, this is the controller for the controller board. So this has buttons on here, and it lets you control it's like the menu button, the settings for the monitor. You want to change the contrast and the color and stuff. All of this is pretty much plug and play. Just plug it in and plug it in. That's what this is, and that comes with this when you buy it. Again, it's like $40 on eBay. Okay, now the next thing is the amp. The amp costs about $26 on Amazon. If you don't have an amp hooked onto this, then you won't hear no sound. You gotta have an amp to hear sound, and that's just a plug and play headphone jacks, 2 male ends, and then you just hook the power up to your regular surge protector. This is the one-up speaker that came with the one-up cabinet. Just cut the wires, plug it into your amp. It's a positive and a negative. Okay, now the power for the controller board, you can actually use the power cord that came with your one-up cabinet. So you can just plug it into that, and that'll get power to this and the monitor. Now the HDMI port on here is your regular standard HDMI port, but on the Raspberry Pi 4 it's a small HDMI port. So when you buy this cable, make sure you have a regular size and then a small size on this end. Okay, now the controller board. This is the control board panel. This is again where your joystick and your buttons are. Now if you change the buttons to the light ones, you're gonna have to, it comes with these other like circuit boards they call encoders, and you're gonna have to hook up each button onto this, and then this converts it to a USB, so then you can plug that into your Raspberry Pi. And there's YouTube videos on how to do that. I had to add a shut off button here. I'll go into that a little bit later. Again, the buttons was like $45 on eBay. Now the Raspberry Pi 4. Now if you don't know, the Raspberry Pi 4 is like a little computer. You have to shut it down like a computer. You have to shut it down and then turn it off. If you don't do that, your files and your games or whatever that you got stored in here can get corrupted and you'll lose it. And all of it is stored on a SD card. So if you just turn it off, you can corrupt the SD card and lose all your files and games. So you have to shut it down. That's where the power shutdown button comes from. There's a YouTube video on how to do it. There's 2 pins in here you hook it up to, just 2 wires, and shut off. This is a normally open button. So that's what that's about. And then again, the HDMI, we went over that. And then the Raspberry Pi has 4 USB ports. I got 2 of them hooked on to player 1, player 2. If you want, you could put 4 players. But I choose to put 2 USB ports in front of the arcade. That way I have access to, if I want to hook up a regular controller with a USB cable, I can just plug it into here and play. Now also, to configure your Raspberry Pi, you need to plug a USB keyboard to it so you can configure it and put games or do whatever you want to do to it. Hence also, this is why I put this towards on the outside, so if I ever need to do something and configure it, I can just plug in the keyboard and have access to it without going in the cabinet. Then again, is your regular power cord, just plug it in. Now, this is the main cutoff power switch here. I put this next to the USB ports towards the front. Now, if you don't have a power switch, when you shut down, your monitor stay on, the amp will stay on, the controller will stay on, and even the Raspberry Pi will stay on. It has a fan in here to keep it cool. That will also stay on. So you have to either turn it off from here, leave this outside, and have 3 plugs sticking out of the arcade cabinet, and then just get one of these with a button and just flip it off. Then you can turn off everything, or you can unplug it. I choose to put the switch, and this is how I hooked it up here. I got a regular cord, it's like a PC cord that you hook up to your back of your computer. I bought one of these, hooked up my wires to it, ran it into an electrical box, and then I got the power hooked up inside the box, going to the switch. One side of the switch. The other side of the switch is going to the other side of the receptacle. Then I got my ground, and then the neutral going to the other side. Put the cover on it. Then you can just plug that in